Greetings, Exiles! With the release of patch 3.10, Delirium, Sirus, the endgame boss of Path of Exile, was buffed to be more challenging. This has made the fight unbeatable for some players, while also introducing a number of bugs that make the fight more frustrating than ever. This video, however, is designed to help you circumvent those bugs and give you the best shot at beating Sirus without ever encountering some of his more frustrating mechanics. With that in mind, and with no further ado, let's go over the recommended gear you will need. Now, the first thing I would wholeheartedly recommend is some sort of instant dash ability. Skills like Flame Dash, Dash, Lightning Warp, or Mirror Archer are all great choices to help you move in this fight and avoid many of Sirus' abilities. Keep in mind that you want to actively avoid skills like Leap Slam, since they will not work in avoiding his cross laser ability, which comes in the second phase of the fight, and will result in you getting slowed instead as you pass through the cross lasers. The second important thing I'd recommend is some form of high single target damage ability. Skills like Blade Flurry, Cyclone, Barrage all work great here. You want to make sure you're doing as much damage to Sirus in order to end this fight faster, and therefore have less of a chance of dying, which is where most of the bugs and broken mechanics come into play. The third important piece of gear you will need is Chaos Roots. Chaos Roots will allow you to completely trivialize the second part of the Sirus fight, which is also the most hectic, and gives you even more opportunities to damage him and avoid his attacks without worrying about being slowed to a crawl. The fourth and final thing you will need is some form of Corrupted Blood Immunity Jewel. I am using this small cluster jewel with Fel and Corrupted Blood Immunity. This, however, might be a bit expensive for some players, as this cost me about 3 exalts to get. Nevertheless, any inexpensive piece of jewelry with Corrupted Blood Immunity will do, like this one. Keep in mind that you will probably have to sacrifice some damage to run this, but trust me, it is well worth it. Now, with all those things being said, all the other standard principles about PoE gear apply to this fight as well. You will obviously need a 6-link for your main attack skill, high DPS weapons, jewelry and rings and amulets that complement your build and give you stats and resists, as well as any necessary uniques and flasks you might need for your build to function. Keep in mind that you will obviously need 75% on all resistances before going into this fight, which I will have once I equip my cluster jewel. You might have noticed that some of my gear is extremely expensive, with some of it going upward of 15 exalts to obtain. And while this is true, I firmly believe that any well-geared character with some decent single target can beat this boss without too much trouble, once the player has understood the mechanics and has followed some of the gearing and general tips I will be discussing in this video. I would also like to point out that all the gear I recommend for this video is extremely cheap. The Chaos Roots I am using cost me about 10 Chaos at the time of this recording. The jewel should only cost you about 5 or 10 Chaos if you're only going for the Corrupted Blood cannot be inflicted on you implicit mod. It should be noted that in the end all high-end gear does is help you finish this fight faster, and therefore it gives you less of a window to make a mistake and die during the fight. Now, with those tips in mind, let's discuss the mechanics of the fight over an Awakening 8 Deathless run I did recently. I will be pointing out my thought process throughout this fight, while also giving you general tips I have learned since then from doing the fight a couple more times, either for myself or for some other people. Without further ado, let's go over the fight and its mechanics.
Did you really think this would work?
Sirus, please, we want to help you. Don't do anything hasty.
Destroying you is as easy as flicking a pest.
No! Kirak!
How boring and small.
What I basically did there, and you might have picked it up on the video, is I increased the character voices and just the dialogue sounds of the game while decreasing the music. Like you might have noticed there's no music in the background. This is really helpful because it will better help you understand which attack Sirus is doing at its time without you having to heal all the chaos going on behind it. It is a tip that I would highly recommend you also do. Now the first thing I will do when I go underneath him, and that happens on every phase transition of the first part of the fight, is I'm going to pop all the flasks, all the banners, all the totems, whatever I need in order to do the most damage possible as soon as possible. I am also preparing to dodge here, because more often than not, I'd say about 8 to 10 times, whenever he transitions from his, let's say, 25% phase to his 50% phase, or 50% health down phase, he's going to start casting meteors on a line where he's facing. Those meteors are extremely deadly and you want to avoid them at all costs, because these meteors, even with my health and my gear, can one-shot me.
What's this? A real challenge? You'll find.
Now, as soon as I see his health appear, what I want to do is try and go after him. Remember, you want to stay at melee range with this guy. Being at melee means that most of his attacks cannot hit you. It should also point out that he can only teleport where he's looking. So if he's looking to the left, he's going to be teleporting to the left. Now, in this situation, my guy is inside of a storm, so I shouldn't dash after him into the storm. But I can walk up to him slowly, or dash to the left of him and be safe. Remember, the first thing you want to do after the phase transition is A, avoid the meteors. If you see those blinking lights that will appear in a second after the video starts, you want to avoid those because they will one-shot you, and you want to dash after him and try to stay in melee range. And always keep in mind throughout this whole fight that he will teleport in a line. So where he's looking, that's where he's going to teleport. So as you can see here, I've correctly identified that I cannot actually dash after him and be close to him, but I can walk up to him, and as I was saying before, remember those lights? You want to avoid those lights. Those lights are way more damaging and way more dangerous than any beam he can do at this stage of the fight. These lights, the ones that you see now on the floor, are the ones that I was talking about, and they might one-shot you if you get hit by either one or more than one of them. So as I said, what I'm trying to do here and what my mindset is basically I want to stay as mobile as I can. So that's why I'm running around. After every blade flurry charge, I release, run a little bit, and go over again. Again, if you have another skill that isn't channeling, and it's instead instant cast, that is a lot easier. If you're having Cyclone, that is a lot easier. But the point here is always stay in melee range of this guy, and try to be as mobile as possible. As you can see, none of his beams are actually hitting me at this point. So that is pretty good. I am also preparing for his next transition. After every 25% of the first phase, he's going to transition into his second phase, and we'll talk about that when it comes. Now, for every 25% health you do on the first phase of the fight, he's going to go into this storm phase, and he's going to say the lines, "Your lives are meaningless." What he's going to do now is he's going to spawn a storm underneath him, making it impossible for you to go underneath him and damage him, and he's going to start trying to bombard you with projectiles, with the meteors that you saw, and some degen ground that he's going to pop up. What you want to do is go to a safe location on the map, either to the left, to his right, up, down, doesn't really matter, and you want to wait there for about 10 to 15 seconds until you think the storm is not underneath him. Then you can go back in and damage him again. So as I said, I wait for his storm to subside, go to the side, and then I try to dash underneath him while getting hit by as few projectiles as possible. Now, what you want to do, and you saw that in the first time, you see it now, is you want to pop all your buffs, you want to pop your banners, you want to pop your totems, and wait for him to get down. When he's close to the ground, you can pop your flasks and start doing damage. If you have a flask like Bottle Faith, which is area specific, you want to pop it after he teleports, so that you will do the most damage to him. Also keep in mind that after every part of the fight, he will drop some flask charges, so you can use your flasks on the first phase of the fight.
Strength in their projections, they became reliant on them.
Now, during his first phase, other than the two beams that you already saw, the single beam and the die beam, which is the multiple beams at the same time, another attack he can do is this corridor attack. When he does this, he's going to raise up two walls to your left and to your right, and he's going to start throwing fireballs to the left and to the right side of the corridor. Now, there are two ways to deal with this. One is what you're gonna see here. It's basically dash out of the corridor and just cancel the whole attack. Or go to his left or to his right, just enough where he doesn't cancel the attack and start doing damage to him. The second thing is going up and down the corridor without moving forward though. So, to recap, either dash behind him to end the attack, or go up and down the corridor from the left to the right wall as the fireballs are coming without moving forward. Again, same thing as you saw before. Whenever I see that the storm is not underneath him, I just go after him. So what I do over here is actually really stupid. I try to stay close to him. As we said, you want to stay as close to him during this fight, but I follow him inside his degeneration burning ground, which is really bad and really stupid. You shouldn't do this. You want to stay as close to him as you can, but don't follow him inside his either his grounds or his storms. These degen grounds, they not only inflict heavy degen damage, but they also shock, meaning that whatever damage I take right now is going to be increased by up to 50%. This is one of the 2 times I almost die, and it's because I'm being stupid and following him around in the degen zones. Don't do that. Now that attack you saw over there is his labyrinth mazes. He's going to start doing this at about 50 to 25% health on the first phase, and he will continue to do this with more and more walls on the second phase. What this basically does is he goes above ground, so he's untargetable, and he's going to summon a meteor down after a while, and if you're in this maze area or close to the walls, you don't want to hug the walls on this one, you will die. This is heavy damage, and unless you're bugged into one of the walls, you're dead. What you want to do is try to find those little flares that are around the exits and go out of it. Usually, even without a flask of Quicksilver, you can get out of them in time if you have some sort of dash. And remember, I am using Chaos with no movement speed, so at this point my movement speed is at minus 3%. Again, you can see me doing the same things as I was doing on the first phase. He is now transitioning into his second phase, and again, I am underneath him, I am ready to pop my totems, I am ready to pop my banners, I am ready to pop my flask when he is close to the ground. But this is where things actually start to get difficult. This is where the fight really becomes hectic, and this is the main reason why you bring in Chaos roots. If you have to change a couple of pieces of gear to incorporate Chaos roots into your build, I strongly suggest that you bring Chaos roots in this fight, because as you will see in the video, he gains a couple of new attacks that are really annoying if you don't have Chaos roots. However, the principles, even if you choose to do this, let's say legit without Chaos root, are still the same. stay close to him, try and stay in melee, and try to burst him as fast as you can. And always look where he's going so that you can teleport after him.
I am alive.
Okay, so this is one of the new attacks that he gets on phase 2. He will teleport in a random location and then he will spawn clones in a circle, and then after a while he will say one or two things. Either meaning is an illusion or feel the thrill of the void. You want to use your dash ability before the last part of the sentence. So if he's saying meaning is an illusion, before an illusion, so meaning is and you dodge. And if he's saying feel the thrill of the void, you want to go feel the thrill off and then you dodge before he says the void. This is one of the easier attacks he gets. If you start moving in a circle or a crescent shape and then you just dodge at the correct time, you should almost never get hit. It becomes a little bit trickier when he gets in conjunction with another attack that he gets that you'll see later in the video. But that attack is also gonna be somewhat nullified by the Chaos roots. You're gonna see it and we're gonna analyze it a bit further. But after this attack, the ideas remain the same. Just when he's done with the attack, dash after him and just start dealing damage. Okay, so this is the attack that has been giving people the most trouble. What he will do is he will teleport to a location and then with 4 other clones start casting magic into the ground. After a while, this magic will start branching out from where he was channeling, like a cross. That's why I called it the cross lasers in the beginning of the video. What you want to do in this attack is you want to dash after him again and start dealing damage to him while he's channeling. You're going to notice who the correct clone is by the sheen that he has. He has a blue sheen, basically a light around him. And after a while, you can also see his health bar. So this is a great opportunity to start dealing damage to him. You should not miss out on this opportunity. And this is the main reason why you bring in the Chaos, because as you're gonna see, this attack with Chaos is a lot different than you might have known it without Chaos. Okay, so this is the attack that I was talking about. This is the cross lasers, and this is what you prepare for in this fight. What he will do now, after casting those lasers, is one of 3 things. He will either A, teleport and use the die beam, which is the dangerous part and which is where most people die. He will teleport and use the clone attack that we saw before with the feel the thrill of the void, or he will teleport and start using his single beams. Either way, what you want to do is pay attention to where he's facing. As I can see here, he is facing to the right, so he is going to teleport to the right. What I want to do now is, in a crescent shape, I want to start following him again, while avoiding those beams. Now, if you do have Chaos, those beams will not slow you, but they will start dealing damage after you stand into them for too long. If you don't have Chaos, these beams are a nightmare, and you want to just dash through them and try to avoid them, while also trying to stay close to Sirus. However, this is why you bring Chaos, and this, you will see the rest of the fight here is a different fight than you might have seen so far. Now, as you might have noticed, a couple of things happened throughout the last 30 seconds of the video. First things first, I was able to get through the cross laser phase with almost no damage taken and with almost no trouble. The reason for that is because of Chaos. Chaos really enables you to just basically almost completely ignore the lasers and just focus on fighting the guy as you would if the laser was not present. The second thing is, and it should be noted, that when I stood into the laser for too long, I did actually take damage. So you want to dash through the laser. You can dash through the laser and you won't be slowed if you have Chaos, but you don't want to just tank it because it will start damaging you. The third thing is, again, the principles of the fight. Stay close to him, stay melee range, try circling around. And as you saw, he used the abilities that he was using and are giving people trouble, but I was able to just simply avoid them without much trouble. And the last thing is something that we reiterated before, is don't stay into the degen field. This is the second time I almost die into this fight, and it's because of the degen field. I went and I stood into it, and you should never do it.
I felt something.
I'm sorry. Sirus, this was all...
So anyway, that was the Sirus fight. Hope this video has been helpful, has been informative to basically teach you some of the mechanics and give you some tips as to how you can do this fight more efficiently and a bit easier on yourselves. If you're still having a hard time, I am going to be streaming from now on, and I will start in a couple of days. I'll have the Twitch channel in the description, so you can follow me there, and if you're having trouble and I'm online, pop in the chat or send me a PM in the game and we can run the fight together, maybe analyze it a little bit, see where you did wrong, what you did right, and give you some pointers or, you know, help you out. Either way, if you like the video, please like it, share it, and I hope to see you in game. Happy hunting, Exiles!